How could you sell the house without telling me? This is where we built our dreams together. I shouted into the phone, my voice trembling with disbelief and anger. Daryl's response was a mix of defensiveness and resignation. I'm sorry, Evelyn, but it's done. My mother insisted, and I couldn't say no. My heart sank as the weight of his words hit me. The house I had grown up in, the place where my parents had poured their love and memories, was gone, sold without my knowledge or consent. Your mother? What does she have to do with this? I demanded, already knowing the answer deep down. Margot had never approved of me, always seeing me as an outsider who had stolen her precious son away. The resentment in her eyes was palpable whenever we were together, her words laced with thinly veiled barbs. Daryl sighed heavily. She said it was for the best. With your parents' medical bills piling up, we needed the money. I gripped the phone tighter, fighting back tears. That was our decision to make, not hers. How could you, behind my back like this? The silence on the other end spoke volumes. Daryl had always been a mama's boy, unable to stand up to Margot's manipulations. Memories flooded my mind, the day we moved into that house full of hopes and dreams for our future, the countless family gatherings, the laughter echoing through the halls. And now, it was all gone, reduced to a mere transaction without my consent. I'm coming home, I said firmly, my voice steadier than I felt. We need to talk about this in person. Daryl mumbled something about Margot wanting to discuss it further, but I had heard enough. As I hung up the phone, a familiar determination welled up within me. This was not the end, but the beginning of a reckoning long overdue. Margot had crossed a line, and I would not let her trample over my family's legacy without a fight. The drive back to my hometown was a blur, my mind racing with a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, betrayal, and a deep sense of loss intermingled, fueling my resolve. When I finally pulled up to Margot's modest house, the sight of my belongings haphazardly strewn across the front lawn was like a slap in the face. Daryl stood there looking equal parts ashamed and defiant, while Margot watched from the porch with a smug expression. Welcome home, dear, she called out, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation ahead. This was not just about a house, it was about reclaiming my dignity and standing up for what was right. As I approached them, the words tumbled out, raw and unfiltered. How dare you? That house belonged to my family, not you. You had no right to sell it behind my back. Margot's eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, Daryl stepped forward. It's done, Evelyn. The money's been spent, and there's nothing you can do about it. His words cut deep, but I refused to back down. We'll see about that, I said, meeting his gaze with unwavering determination. This was just the beginning. I would not let them trample over my family's legacy without a fight. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was ready to reclaim what was rightfully mine, no matter the cost. The confrontation with Daryl and Margot left me reeling, but it also stirred up memories of how our marriage had slowly unraveled over the years. Looking back, the cracks had been there from the beginning, hidden beneath the surface of our initial infatuation. When we first met, I was captivated by Daryl's charming smile and easygoing nature. He came from a modest background, but his ambition and determination to build a better life for himself were admirable. I, on the other hand, had grown up in a comfortable household, never wanting for anything, thanks to my parents' successful business ventures. Despite our different upbringings, we fell head over heels in love, convinced that our bond was strong enough to overcome any obstacle. How naive we were. The first few years of our marriage were blissful, filled with laughter and shared dreams. But as time passed, Daryl's resentment towards my family's wealth began to surface. He would make snide comments about my privileged upbringing or accuse me of looking down on him whenever I tried to offer advice or support. You don't understand what it's like to struggle, he would say, his eyes clouded with bitterness. You've had everything handed to you on a silver platter. I tried to reassure him, to make him see that my love for him had nothing to do with money or status, but Margot's constant presence in our lives only fueled the fire. She would whisper poisonous words in Daryl's ear, convincing him that I was the reason he hadn't achieved more in life. She's holding you back, my son, Margot would croon, her voice dripping with false concern. You deserve better than to live in her shadow. Slowly but surely, Daryl began to withdraw from me, seeking solace in his mother's toxic embrace. He became increasingly irresponsible, neglecting his job and relying on my income to support us. Whenever I tried to confront him, He would lash out, accusing me of nagging and criticizing him. "You think you're so perfect, don't you?" he would snarl, his words cutting deep. "With your fancy upbringing and your high and mighty attitude." It was a vicious cycle, and I found myself caught in the middle, desperately trying to salvage our marriage while also fending off Margot's constant barbs and manipulations. "She's poisoning his mind against you," my mother would warn me, her eyes filled with concern. "That woman is nothing but trouble." But I was too stubborn, too convinced that our love could overcome anything. I clung to the hope that Daryl would see through Margot's games and remember the man I had fallen in love with. It wasn't until my parents' accident that the true extent of Daryl's betrayal became clear. With my focus on caring for them, I had let my guard down, allowing Margot to sink her claws in deeper. And now, as I stood amidst the wreckage of my childhood home, the weight of Daryl's actions hit me with full force. He had not only sold the house behind my back, but had also revealed the depths of his resentment towards my family's legacy. "You never really loved me, did you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You just saw me as a meal ticket, a way to escape your own insecurities." Daryl's silence was deafening, and in that moment I knew our marriage was beyond repair. The man I had loved was gone, replaced by a bitter, resentful shell of a person, poisoned by Margot's toxic influence. As I turned to leave, my heart heavy with the realization that our dreams had crumbled to dust, I made a silent vow. I would not let Margot and Daryl's betrayal break me. Instead, I would rise from the ashes, stronger and more resilient than ever before. And this time, I would fight for what was rightfully mine, my family's legacy and my own self-worth. The shrill ringing of my phone pierced the tense silence that had enveloped the room. With trembling hands, I answered, dreading the news I knew was coming. "Evelyn, it's your mother." Carol's voice wavered on the other end. "There's been an accident." My heart plummeted as she relayed the details. A reckless driver, a head-on collision, my parents' car crumpled like a tin can. They were alive, but barely, clinging to life in the hospital's intensive care unit. Without a second thought, I packed a bag and made arrangements to return to my hometown immediately. Daryl and Margot's betrayal could wait. My parents needed me now more than ever. As I rushed to the hospital, a torrent of memories flooded my mind. My parents' unwavering love and support, the countless sacrifices they had made to give me the best life possible. The thought of losing them was unbearable, a pain so visceral that it threatened to consume me. When I finally reached their bedside, the sight of their battered bodies nearly brought me to my knees. My strong, resilient parents, the pillars of my world, lay broken and fragile, their lives hanging by a thread. "Mom, Dad," I whispered, grasping their hands tightly. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." In the days that followed, I became a fixture at the hospital, dividing my time between their rooms and the waiting area, where I made countless phone calls and arrangements. Daryl and Margot were the furthest things from my mind. All that mattered was ensuring my parents received the best possible care. It was during one of my rare visits home to gather more belongings that I encountered Margot. Her presence was like a dark cloud, casting a pall over what should have been a sanctuary. "Evelyn, dear," she simpered, her tone sickly sweet. "How are your parents faring?" I bristled at her feigned concern, knowing full well that she harbored no genuine affection for my family. "They're hanging in there," I replied curtly, eager to be rid of her presence. But Margot was relentless, her barbs sharper than ever. "It must be so difficult for you, having to juggle everything on your own. If only Daryl were more supportive, but you know how he is." Her words struck a nerve, and I whirled around to face her, my anger boiling over. "Don't you dare bring Daryl into this," I hissed. "This is about my parents, not your twisted games." Margot's eyes narrowed, her mask of concern slipping for a brief moment. "I'm just trying to help, dear. You know you can count on me." I scoffed, shaking my head in disbelief. "The only thing I need from you is to stay out of my way. I don't have time for your manipulations, not when my parents' lives are at stake." With that, I turned on my heel and stormed out, leaving Margot sputtering in my wake. I had no room in my life for her toxicity, not when every ounce of my strength was needed to support my parents through this crisis. In the weeks that followed, I became a fixture at the hospital, dividing my time between their rooms and the waiting area, where I made countless phone calls and arrangements. Daryl's absence was palpable, a constant reminder of the chasm that had grown between us. But through it all, my parents remained my unwavering source of strength. Even in their weakened state, They offered words of encouragement and support, reminding me of the resilience that ran through our family's veins. "You're our rock, Evelyn," my father whispered one day, his eyes shining with pride. We couldn't ask for a more devoted daughter. In that moment, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would face them head-on, fueled by my love for my parents and the determination to protect their legacy at all costs. Margot and Daryl's betrayal had only strengthened my resolve, forging a steel within me that would not bend or break. As I held my parents' hands, their warmth a lifeline in the midst of the storm, I silently vowed to weather this crisis and emerge stronger than ever before. For them, and for the family we had built together, I would fight with every fiber of my being. After weeks of keeping a constant vigil by my parents' bedsides, the doctors finally gave me the news I had been desperately hoping for. They were stable enough for me to return home, at least for a brief period. With a heavy heart, I kissed them both goodbye, promising to return as soon as I could. Little did I know, the true betrayal awaited me back in our hometown. As I pulled up to Margot's modest house, a sense of dread washed over me. Something felt off, a prickling at the back of my neck that set my nerves on edge. And then, I saw it, my belongings strewn haphazardly across the front lawn like discarded trash. "What in the world?" I muttered, my heart pounding as I leapt from the car. That's when I noticed the "sold" sign planted defiantly in the yard of my childhood home, a cruel mockery of the memories that had once filled its walls. In that moment, the world seemed to tilt on its axis, and I found myself struggling to breathe. "Evelyn, dear, welcome back," Margot's sickly sweet voice cut through the haze of disbelief. I whirled around to face her, my anger boiling over. "What have you done, Margot? What is the meaning of this?" Her smile was a twisted parody of innocence, her eyes glinting with malice. "Why, I've simply taken care of a little business transaction, that's all. The house was such a burden, and Daryl agreed it was for the best." As if summoned by the mere mention of his name, Daryl emerged from the shadows, his expression a mixture of shame and defiance. "It's true, Evelyn. The money from the sale will help us get back on our feet." I recoiled as if struck, the weight of their betrayal crashing down upon me like a tidal wave. "How could you?" I choked out, my voice thick with unshed tears. "That house was my family's legacy, our home, and you sold it behind my back?" Margot's laugh was a cruel, grating sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, dear. It was just a house, after all. And as Daryl's wife, you should have been more supportive of his decisions." Daryl shifted uncomfortably, his gaze averted as if unable to meet my eyes. "It's not like you were ever around anyway," he muttered. "Always running off to tend to your precious parents, leaving me to fend for myself." His words cut deep, but it was the undercurrent of resentment that truly stung. In that moment, I saw him for who he truly was. A bitter, envious man who had never truly accepted my family's wealth and success. "Is that what this is about?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and heartbreak. "You resented my upbringing, my parents' hard-earned legacy?" Daryl's silence spoke volumes, and Margot's smug expression only added fuel to the fire burning within me. "Well, let me make one thing clear," I said, squaring my shoulders and meeting their gazes head-on. That house was more than just a piece of property. It was a symbol of everything my parents had worked for, a testament to their values and their love for our family. Margot scoffed, but I pressed on, undeterred. "And you," I turned to Daryl, my heart shattering with every word, "you were supposed to be my partner, my equal. But instead, you let your petty jealousies and insecurities consume you, allowing your mother to manipulate you into betraying the very foundation of our marriage." Daryl opened his mouth as if to protest, but I held up a hand, silencing him. "Save it," I said, my voice steely with resolve. "This marriage is over. I refuse to be a part of your twisted games any longer." As I turned to gather what remained of my belongings, I could feel Margot's eyes boring into my back, her silent fury palpable. But in that moment, I didn't care. A weight had been lifted from my shoulders, and for the first time in years, I felt truly free. The road ahead would be long and arduous, but I was ready to face it head-on. No longer would I allow Margot and Daryl's toxicity to poison my life. It was time to reclaim my family's legacy and restore the honor that they had so callously trampled upon. And as I drove away, leaving their stunned silence in my wake, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would emerge victorious, no matter the cost. In the days following my confrontation with Daryl and Margot, A sense of calm determination settled over me. I had made my choice, and there was no turning back. It was time to demand answers and hold them accountable for their betrayal. I summoned them both to the house, my childhood home, that they had so callously sold without my consent. As they arrived, their expressions ranged from defiant to sheepish, but I refused to be swayed by their theatrics. "Evelyn, dear, what is the meaning of this?" Margot simpered, her false concern grating on my nerves. I leveled her with a steely gaze, my voice unwavering. "Cut the act, Margot. You know exactly why you're here. I want answers, and I want them now." Daryl shifted uncomfortably, his eyes downcast as if unable to meet my gaze. "Evelyn, please, let's not do anything rash." "Rash?" I scoffed, my anger bubbling to the surface. "You sold my family's home behind my back, and you have the audacity to call me rash." Margot's mask of innocence slipped, her true colors shining through. "It was for the best, dear. You were never around, always running off to tend to your precious parents. We needed the money, and Daryl agreed it was the right thing to do." I turned to Daryl, my heart shattering at the sight of his resigned expression. "Is this true? Did you really agree to this?" He nodded, his shoulders slumped in defeat. "I'm sorry, Evelyn, but she's right. We were struggling, and the money from the sale was too good to pass up." "And what about my share?" I demanded, my voice rising with each word. "That house was just as much mine as it was yours. You had no right to sell it without my consent." Margot's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a smug smile. "Oh, but he did, dear. As his wife, you're entitled to half of everything he owns. The sale was perfectly legal." I recoiled as if struck, the weight of her words hitting me like a physical blow. They truly believed they held all the cards, that their deceit and manipulation had given them the upper hand. But in that moment, a fire ignited within me, a burning determination to reclaim what was rightfully mine. I would not let them trample over my family's legacy, not without a fight. "You think you've won, don't you?" I said, my voice low and steady. "You believe that your twisted schemes have given you the power to control me, to strip me of my dignity and my inheritance." Margot's smile faltered, her bravado wavering in the face of my newfound resolve. "Well, let me make one thing clear," I continued, squaring my shoulders and meeting their gazes head-on. "This is far from over. I will not rest until I have reclaimed what is rightfully mine, and you have both been held accountable for your actions." Daryl opened his mouth as if to protest, but I silenced him with a single look. "Save your excuses, Daryl. You made your choice when you sided with your mother, when you allowed her poisonous influence to corrupt our marriage. Now you must live with the consequences." Turning to Margot, I leveled her with a steely glare. "As for you, your reign of manipulation and deceit ends here. I will not allow you to continue tarnishing my family's legacy with your selfish schemes." Margot's eyes widened, her mask of confidence cracking as she realized the tables had turned. "Mark my words," I said, my voice ringing with conviction. "I will fight for what is mine, and I will emerge victorious. You have underestimated me for the last time." With those words, I turned and walked away, leaving them stunned in my wake. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was ready to wage war, armed with the knowledge that justice and truth were on my side. No longer would I be a passive bystander, allowing Margot and Daryl's toxicity to dictate the course of my life. It was time to take back control, to reclaim the honor and legacy that had been so callously stripped away. And as I stepped out into the world, a newfound sense of purpose coursed through my veins. This was not the end, but the beginning of a journey, one that would lead me to redemption, no matter the cost. In the aftermath of my confrontation with Daryl and Margot, a newfound sense of determination coursed through my veins. I would not allow their deceit and manipulation to stand unchallenged. It was time to take back control of my life and reclaim my family's legacy. With a heavy heart, I returned to the hospital, my mind still reeling from the events of the past few days. As I approached my parents' rooms, a familiar ache settled in my chest, the weight of their sacrifices, the love they had poured into building a life for our family. "Mom, Dad," I said, my voice thick with emotion as I took their hands in mine, "I'm so sorry for what's happened." My mother's eyes, still bright despite her frailty, met mine with unwavering strength. "Evelyn, my dear, you have nothing to apologize for. This is not your burden to bear." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "But the house, our home, it's gone. Sold without my knowledge, without any regard for what it meant to us." My father's hand tightened around mine, his gaze steady and resolute. "That house was just bricks and mortar, my love. It's the memories, the love we shared within those walls that truly matter. His words struck a chord deep within me, and I found myself nodding, a newfound clarity washing over me. You're right, I said, squaring my shoulders. Margot and Daryl may have taken the house, but they cannot take away our family's legacy, our values, and our strength. A small smile played across my mother's lips. That's my girl. You have always been the embodiment of our family's resilience. With a deep breath, I steeled myself for what I knew I had to do. I won't let them get away with this, I vowed. I will fight to reclaim what is rightfully ours, no matter the cost. My parents exchanged a knowing glance, and my father reached into his bedside table, retrieving a worn leather folder. We had a feeling you might say that, he said, handing it to me. Confusion furrowed my brow as I opened the folder, my eyes widening as I scanned the documents inside. It was a legal contract, detailing a secret ownership transfer clause that had been put in place years ago. A clause that granted me sole ownership of the family home in the event of any disputes or betrayals. How? I trailed off, my mind reeling. My mother's hand found mine, her touch grounding me in the whirlwind of emotions. We knew, deep down, that Margot's jealousy and Daryl's resentment would eventually come to a head. This was our way of protecting our family's legacy, of ensuring that you would never be left defenseless. Tears streamed down my cheeks as the weight of their foresight, their unwavering love and support, washed over me. Thank you, I whispered, clutching the folder to my chest. Thank you for always believing in me, for giving me the strength to fight. My father's eyes shone with pride. You are our greatest legacy, Evelyn. Never forget that. In that moment, a fire ignited within me, a burning determination to right the wrongs that had been committed. I would not cower in the face of Margot and Daryl's schemes. Armed with the truth and the unwavering support of my parents, I would confront them head-on, shattering their illusions of control and exposing their deceit for all to see. As I left the hospital, the folder tucked securely under my arm, a newfound sense of purpose propelled me forward. This was not the end, but the beginning of a reckoning long overdue. Margot and Daryl had underestimated me for far too long, and it was time to show them the true strength of our family's legacy. With each step, my resolve solidified, a steely determination settling over me like a suit of armor. I would not back down, not until justice had been served and our honor restored. This was my fight, my chance to reclaim what was rightfully mine and to honor the sacrifices of those who had come before me. And as I approached the familiar streets of my hometown, I knew that the battle lines had been drawn. It was time to confront Margot and Daryl, to shatter their facade of control and expose the truth that would set me free. Armed with the truth and the unwavering support of my parents, I wasted no time in confronting Daryl and Margot. Their deceit had gone on for far too long, and it was time to shatter their illusions of control once and for all. I summoned them to the house, my childhood home, the very place they had so callously sold behind my back. As they arrived, their expressions ranged from defiant to uneasy, but I refused to be swayed by their theatrics. Evelyn, what is the meaning of this? Margot demanded, her voice dripping with false indignation. I met her gaze head-on, my resolve unwavering. The meaning, Margot, is that your games have come to an end. Your manipulation, your deceit, it all stops here. Daryl shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting between us. Evelyn, please, let's not do anything rash. Rash? I scoffed, holding up the folder containing the legal documents my parents had entrusted me with. This is far from rash, Daryl. This is justice, plain and simple. Margot's eyes narrowed as she caught sight of the papers, her bravado faltering for the briefest of moments. What is that? She snapped, her voice laced with a hint of unease. I opened the folder, letting the weight of the documents speak for themselves. This, dear mother-in-law, is a legally binding contract that grants me sole ownership of this property, regardless of your machinations. The color drained from Margot's face as the truth sank in, her carefully constructed facade crumbling before my eyes. That's impossible, she sputtered, her composure slipping. Daryl, tell her she's lying. But Daryl remained silent, his gaze fixed on the papers, the realization of his own complicity dawning upon him. You see, Margot, I continued, my voice steady and unwavering, my parents were not fools. They knew the depths of your jealousy, your resentment towards our family's success, and so they took precautions, ensuring that our legacy would be protected from your poisonous influence. Margot's eyes blazed with fury, her desperation palpable. You think this changes anything? She spat, her words laced with venom. Daryl is my son, and he will always choose me over you. I turned to Daryl, my heart heavy with the weight of his betrayal. Is that true, Daryl? Even after everything, after seeing the lengths your mother has gone to manipulate and deceive us, you still choose her? For a moment he remained silent, his gaze flickering between us, torn between the toxic embrace of his mother and the truth that lay before him. And then, finally, he spoke. I'm sorry, Evelyn, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I never meant for things to go this far. Margot's triumphant smirk faltered as she realized the tide was turning, her grip on her son's loyalty slipping through her fingers. But I can't do this anymore, Daryl continued, his shoulders sagging with the weight of his admission. You were right all along. My resentment, my jealousy, it poisoned our marriage, and I let my mother's influence blind me to what truly mattered. Margot's eyes widened, her desperation mounting. Daryl, don't be foolish. She's manipulating you, just like she always has. But Daryl shook his head, his gaze finally meeting mine, a flicker of the man I had once loved shining through. No, Mother. The only one who has been manipulating us is you. And it ends now. In that moment, I saw the true depth of Margot's defeat, her carefully constructed web of lies unraveling before her very eyes, her power, her control. It had all been an illusion, shattered by the simple truth that she had underestimated the strength of our family's bond. As she stormed out, her fury palpable, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity for the bitter, envious woman she had become. But that pity was quickly overshadowed by a sense of relief, of freedom from the toxicity that had plagued our lives for far too long. Turning to Daryl, I met his gaze, a lifetime of memories and regrets passing between us. I'm sorry, Evelyn, he said again, his voice thick with emotion. I know an apology can never undo the hurt I've caused, but I hope that one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me. I nodded, my heart heavy but resolute. Forgiveness will come in time, Daryl, but for now, I think it's best if we go our separate ways. He nodded, accepting my decision with a grace I hadn't expected. And as he turned to leave, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure, a weight lifted from my shoulders. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Margot's influence may have been broken, but the scars of her manipulation would linger. It was up to me now to reclaim my life, to rebuild and restore the legacy that had been so callously trampled upon. But as I stood in the doorway of my childhood home, the weight of the legal documents in my hand, a tangible reminder of my parents' love and foresight, I knew that I was up to the challenge. This was not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter. One where I would emerge victorious, stronger, and more resilient than ever before. The aftermath of my confrontation with Daryl and Margot was a whirlwind of emotions, relief, anger, and a profound sense of loss all intermingled. As I finalized the divorce proceedings, severing the legal ties that had bound me to Daryl for so many years, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me to this point. Our marriage had started with such promise, such hope for a future filled with love and understanding. But somewhere along the way, the cracks had begun to show, widening into an unbridgeable chasm as Daryl's resentment and Margot's manipulation took hold. I had tried, for so long, to salvage what we had, to cling to the belief that our love could overcome any obstacle. But in the end, their betrayal had been too deep, too devastating to ignore. As I packed up the last of my belongings from Margot's house, a strange sense of finality washed over me. This chapter of my life, with all its highs and lows, was finally coming to a close. Evelyn, Daryl's voice broke the silence, and I turned to find him standing in the doorway, his expression a mix of regret and resignation. What is it, Daryl? I asked, my tone weary but not unkind. He took a deep breath, as if steeling himself for what he was about to say. I know an apology can never undo the hurt I've caused. I want you to know that I truly am sorry, for everything. I nodded, acknowledging his words without judgment. I appreciate your apology, Daryl, but you're right, words can erase the past. He nodded, his shoulders slumping slightly. I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me, not after everything. But I hope that one day we can find a way to move forward, for the sake of the love we once shared. I considered his words carefully, weighing the weight of his actions against the memories of the man I had once loved. Forgiveness will come in time, Daryl, I said finally. But for now, I think it's best if we go our separate ways to heal and rebuild our lives. He nodded, accepting my decision with a grace I hadn't expected. And as he turned to leave, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness for the dreams we had once shared, now reduced to ashes. But that sadness was quickly overshadowed by a newfound sense of purpose, a determination to reclaim the life and legacy that had been so callously trampled upon. As I returned to my childhood home, the weight of the legal documents in my hand, a tangible reminder of my parents' love and foresight, I knew that this was just the beginning. In the weeks and months that followed, I threw myself into the task of restoring the house to its former glory, pouring my heart and soul into every detail. It was a labor of love, a way to honor the sacrifices of my parents and to reclaim the legacy that had been so nearly lost. And as the renovations progressed, something remarkable began to happen. The community rallied around me, offering their support and encouragement in ways I had never imagined. It seemed that my story, my fight against Margot's manipulation and Daryl's betrayal, had struck a chord with those around me. Neighbors and friends alike stepped forward, offering their time and resources to help bring my vision to life. It was a humbling experience, a reminder that even in our darkest moments, the power of human kindness and resilience can shine through. As the final touches were put in place and the house once again stood as a testament to my family's legacy, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. This was more than just a home. It was a symbol of my strength, my unwavering determination to rise above the adversity that had threatened to consume me. And as I stood on the front porch, basking in the warm glow of the setting sun, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in my life, one filled with hope, resilience, and the unwavering knowledge that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would face them head-on, armed with the strength and wisdom that had been passed down through generations. For in that moment, I was no longer just Evelyn Dawson, the wronged wife and daughter. I was a warrior, a beacon of hope, for all those who had faced the sting of betrayal and emerged victorious. And as I looked out over the horizon, I knew that my family's legacy would live on, a testament to the power of love, perseverance, and the unbreakable bonds that bind us together.